Today on the Ask Brady Show, we talk about purging your social media accounts and starting over.
Well, hey there!
And welcome to the Ask Brady Show, episode number 42. We've got 4 great questions from the people of Pro Church Nation, and I'm joined as always to my left, at your right, in the same color as me, olive, army, Roxanne.
It's true.
True it is, behind the camera, the editing wizard himself, Joe Nex. And the man with the cam, Alex Mills.
Thanks. It's not really as special as it sounds because I work here, but I'm here.
All right, Roxanne, take us away with the first question.
So the first question comes from Leah, and she sent in a video.
Hey Brady, my name is Leah, and I'm a media director here at a church in Idaho, Twin Falls actually, and I love my job. I'm really glad to have it. I love my church, and my question is regarding Facebook. So we've had somebody do a great job at being faithful and consistent about posting when things are happening. Unfortunately, a lot of our posts are very disjointed. The graphics don't match. There's no real branding might be the wrong word, but branding happening. So it just feels like we're not utilizing Facebook correctly. And we also don't have very much post engagement. We have a relatively big church for the town that we live in, and a lot of likes on our Facebook page, just not very much post engagement, which is fine. I understand that, but I would really like to kind of bring our Facebook page to life. My question is, should I get rid of the past history of posts? So I was thinking I'd keep on pictures of events, picture of the things that we've done, like trunk or treat, extravaganza, stuff like that. But my thought was just getting rid of maybe like we're doing a special service with X, Y, and Z, and the graphics that just don't look professional might be a mean word, but that's how I feel. So I'm looking into taking ownership of our Facebook page and trying to bring it to life and trying to utilize that platform because I really believe that we can. Let me know what your thoughts are on clearing the past post history. I don't really know what that looks like, but I thought maybe you would. So I want to say thank you so much for all that you do. I learned so much from you. You're an awesome resource for me. So thanks.
Thanks for the question, Leah. I think it brings up a very important topic that I'm glad that we're going to get the opportunity to discuss. We all have a certain disposition, I think, towards keeping things. There's a reason that the show Hoarders exists, right? Because we don't like the thought of having something and then getting rid of it. And that dives into the philosophy of the cost sunk theory, which is basically once we've paid for something or once we've invested time or resources or anything into that something, we are that much less likely to be willing to get rid of it than if we had never invested it in the first place. So even if it would be better when it comes to saving money or saving time or saving resources to kind of just cut our losses, get rid of that thing and start fresh, we will continue to invest money, time, and resources and continue to lose those things into something if we've already started with that because we just don't want to admit that we made a bad decision. Now, this isn't exactly the case in your instance because you weren't the one that published all of these posts, but for everyone listening in Pro Church Nation, it is okay. And in fact, I would say a good practice to go in and delete old stuff for a number of different reasons. So, for instance, you could do this on Instagram if you're trying to create a consistent theme and it wasn't something that you always did, but you want to begin doing it now. You could go into your Instagram profile, delete a bunch of old stuff that doesn't match that, and move forward. Think about this. It will matter to you to think that the stuff that you published is now gone, but no one's going, especially on Facebook, to your feed and like scrolling down and being like, I'm glad this graphic for Trunk or Treat and it's Christmas is still there. No, nobody cares about that, okay? Only you. So you've got to get over that hurdle, that burden, that barrier rather. Second thing is, we do this all the time on our actual website with articles. So I'm not just talking about social media posts. I'm talking about articles that I wrote, published, sent out to our email list of tens of thousands of churches and people. I will delete those articles, set up 301 redirects with that URL, and then redirect people from the original article's URL to a different one that is either better or really that's just similar and we want it to consolidate. And we do this with posts that don't perform well. One, because it helps our link profile with Google. Two, because it increases organic search because of one. And three, because it just keeps the site nice and clean. And so I would most definitely agree with your assertion that maybe we should delete some of this old stuff that's not so great. And I think the way that you kind of propose doing it is the right way of doing it. Go in, delete stuff that's just graphics, stuff that's off-brand, stuff that is definitely out of date and no longer relevant. Keep the photos of people because that stuff is true to your church. It is representative and indicative of who you are and is definitely worth keeping. Side note, if you are listening to this and considering doing like a refinement, I wouldn't delete everything. Unless you have a complete rebrand and are okay losing some of that social collateral. Selective deletion makes sense, but I wouldn't just do a start from scratch. Don't pull a J Beebs and just delete your Instagram account and start again. Or really, almost every celebrity has done that from one time or another.
Yeah.
Don't pull a Tay-Tay, get into a fight, and then be like, you know what, social? See ya. You know what? Don't pull a Tay-Tay and withhold reputation from Spotify after releasing the singles on Spotify.
Don't even get me
Who
started.
do you think you are,
Right?
Taylor?
Oh.
Look what you made me do. I'm just imagining her pulling her stuff from streaming services going, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Buy my album, chump. Well, you know what, Taylor? I'm not buying it. I'll wait the 3 weeks or 3 months until it goes live on Spotify.
It's true.
So take that. You're not going to get me this time. I paid for $19.89, not for reputation. What was the question about? Thanks for the question, Leah. Hopefully that's helpful.
All right. Question 2 comes from Adam.
Hey, Brady. Hey, Roxanne. My question's actually about StoryTape. When should we not use it? Here's what I mean by that. A while back, you coached us to not use stock photos on our website or on our social media pages, especially of faces, not to use stock photos of faces, because I presume it would be because it doesn't look very genuine. So I'm applying that same thought to stock video. Are there circumstances where we should not use stock video?
Great question, Adam, and very timely because StoryTape.com did launch this week. Finally, after a year of build-up, the site is finally live, and it's so great seeing all the new customers roll in and download footage and create videos for their churches, which, of course, leads us to Adam's question. When should we not download stock video and use it to create videos for our churches? And this is a very important point of clarification because I have railed in the past against the use of stock photography on church websites in particular, but really in all church communications and designs.
Yep.
The reason for this is that you do not want to use a stock photo or even a stock video in a position that insinuates that the person in this video goes to your church.
Right.
Now, this is particularly egregious on the homepage above the fold on church websites. So I go to mychurch.com URL. I land on it. There's a great big picture of this, young group of people. There's a black person, a white person, an Indian person, a Native American. There's a man, there's a woman, there's a child. None of those people go to that person's church. None of them. Or there's just a smiling person. You're like, wait a minute, who's that? Oh, that's some person I found on the internet. That is incredibly disingenuous and misrepresentative of your church's community. What you do not want to do is use stock media in instances that will create the illusion or convince people or make people think this person attends that church. That's
right.
What you don't want to do, okay? And that's why putting it on your website is just such poor, bad practice because when someone lands on a website, they expect to see images that are indicative of that brand. So if I go to McDonald's website and there's a picture of a hamburger, I expect that hamburger to be sold by McDonald's. If I then go to McDonald's and they serve me a hamburger and it looks completely different, how am I going to feel? One, I went to McDonald's. Probably not good. Two... Okay. No, legit, I go to McDonald's 3 times a day.
It's true.
I get coffee there now. I roll through the drive-thru like, oh, you're late today. I was like, no, I was here earlier. This is just my second. They're like, oh, okay, enjoy. So I do not want to judge anyone that eats McDonald's. In fact, I really don't like when people shame fast food. They're like, you'll feel terrible. Okay, look, we all eat McDonald's. We all listen to Nickelback. Someone's got to.
Okay,
look.
We do not all listen
who's
to
listening
Nickelback.
to Nickelback?
Not me.
Somebody.
I know.
Jonas, the man with no, not the man. The editing wizard himself, Jonas, listens to Nickelback. This photograph.
And I'm judging him.
Look at this photograph. Okay. Lock it in, people. Lock it in. Oh. Stock media with people in particular. Don't use it when it is representative of your actual church community. So if you were creating a sermon bumper and the sermon bumper was like, run the race, and it was all about, running the race that God presents for you in your life and finishing that, and you have a video of a guy running on a track, like that's okay.
Yeah.
That is art. No one thinks the person in that sermon bumper doesn't attend this church. No, that's art. But if you had the same video or picture of that guy on your church's homepage, not running a track and not in the context of a sermon bumper and in art and in creative and narrative, but like smiling, holding a mug, you're like, oh, look, that's Willie. No, it's not. He doesn't go to this church. So that's the distinction. Do not use stock media, we're talking about people here, in a way that would make people think that those people go to your church. Do not be deceptive in that way, because it's disingenuous, it is deceptive, and it just doesn't help your overall brand. It's just going to disappoint people, right? Like, it's one thing to show it on a website, but it's another for someone to show up and then that representation of your brand is completely different than what your brand actually is. That is one way to create a very poor user experience. And I understand why we fall for this, right? We think, well, on the short term, it might actually increase conversions. It might increase the things that we want. But in the long term, it creates people that are just disappointed and upset and maybe even a little bit bitter because they feel like they were deceived. Mm-hmm. So don't use stock media in that way. Aside from that, stock photos and stock video, use them however you want. Just don't try to pass them off as your actual church's people. That's where I draw the line. And then as for Story Tip, I'm glad Adam brought it up because it allows me to organically mention it here. We're doing this big launch week discount. So if you're watching this before November 21st at midnight, 2017, we want to encourage you to head over to storytape.com and enter the code STORY10 at checkout, and that'll give you 10% off any plan forever. As long as you remain subscribed to Storytape, you can upgrade, cross-grade, downgrade, change your plan, and that 10% discount code will be applied to your customer profile forever. We've got more than 5,000 clips already in the library. We're adding more than 1,000 new clips every single month. 4K ProRes, you can download the graded version, ungraded. You can download 1080p if you need a more manageable file size. And there are 3 different plans to choose from, so you can find one that works for you. So we've been working at this for more than a year, traveling all around the world, shooting a ton, and we're so excited to finally bring this to you. Going forward, for everyone listening, this is just a little insider information. I was on a call today and someone asked me like, so what's next for you? And I was like, well, I know that we've been like doing a ton of these products, but this is it. Like, our 2 main products at Pro Church Tools are Nucleus and Storytape. These are the 2 things that we're going to sell going forward because we think that these are the 2 most important areas for churches to help communicate this message of Jesus in 2017 and beyond. Website, your most important marketing tool, your home base online and in the world, where you're making your first impression, and then video, the most powerful content medium that there is out there, more important and more powerful and more, just exponentially amazing than all the other ones. And so that's where we're focusing our attention. And then Pro Church Tools is going to be our parent brand. We're going to still release all this free content. In fact, we're going to ramp it up even more in 2018 with new shows and more content. We're going to rebuild the Pro Church Tools website and release all that new stuff. So that's us. That's the state of Pro Church Tools in 2017 going forward. And Storytape was the final piece of the puzzle. So storytape.com. Head over there.
All right.
Sign up.
Do it.
For a plan.
Do it now.
3 different plans.
All right.
Enter the code STORY10 at checkout.
All right.
But only before Tuesday, November 21st at 11:59 p.m.
All right.
Eastern Standard Time. Just need to clarify.
All right. Question 3 comes from Coleman, and he says, I've been using Canva and have limited experience with Adobe products. What is the difference in style between a social graphic and a church slide graphic? Especially if they're both announcements.
Before I jump into Coleman's question, I just want to address the fact that it's 4:16 p.m. here in Canada, and we're in the most southern part of Canada that exists, but the sun sets on the other side of this building, and so at 3 p.m. at this time of year, it gets really dark. We're not filming this at midnight. Like this
It
isn't
feels like it.
Like it's just like in the afternoon, and so this is like the Ask Brady show after hours, which is a Jim Gaffigan reference for those that will get that. If you're listening and everything sounds the same, good. If you're watching,
Sorry.
to Coleman's question. Man, launches are just so crazy. We're like we're not as locked in as normal today.
No, it's a little rough.
Hopefully the questions and answers are just as good as normal. But Coleman's question. This brings up something that I'm also excited to talk about, because whether it is designs or video or different social platforms, we all need to understand the unique nuances and different languages of individual platforms. So even though a social graphic and a church graphic, they're both graphics, they should be the same, right? Well, no, because the medium is the message. Mm-hmm. That is a classic quote from the great Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan. Basically, what it means is that where you're actually presenting the message you're trying to get out and the medium to which you're delivering that through is just as important, if not as important, and really the foundational piece of the message itself. You know, like if you are trying to, for instance, share the message of Jesus on the street corner in your underwear,
preferably not.
The message doesn't really matter because the medium is taking over. And that plays out in something as simple as the different nuances between publishing on Instagram and publishing on Facebook. This is why I do not encourage, and in fact, like, say it's poor practice, bad practice to cross-publish on social. Like, you don't want to just auto-publish what you're doing on Facebook to Instagram, on Instagram to Twitter, Twitter to Google+. That's another thing. Google+ to LinkedIn, they're making a comeback, you know, and just all doing it to get... No. Each of these is its own ecosystem, and you want to play within the rules of that ecosystem, and that applies to design here as well. So, for instance, you could create a single Photoshop template, for instance, and then export a 16:9 aspect ratio version of that graphic for a Sunday morning screen, because your screens are still probably in widescreen format, the way that our TVs are in church. And then what you could do is crop that image to a 9:16 or a 1:1 to maximize the real estate within a social platform like Facebook. And, you know, if you're going to go from 16:9 to 9:16, which is like completely rotating the image by 90 degrees, you're probably not going to be able to crop that. You'll have to rearrange the layers. But if you're working within Photoshop, you can just adjust each layer and then you'll still have the same feel of the graphic, but you're going to be maximizing the real estate on each individual platform. And like I said, speaking the language of that platform, which is what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, the most important commodity your church can possess is what, Roxanne?
Attention. And
so if you are not playing by the rules of these individual platforms, you're not maximizing the attention that you can gain. And this is important because why is attention so valuable? Well, because it's so hard to gain in 2017. Our attention spans are low. We are being bombarded with brand messages. Storytape.com before midnight, November 21st, 11:59 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. Story 10 at checkout. Like, we're being bombarded with those nonstop. And we do not have the capacity to deal with that. Like, generations before us, they didn't have to deal with that. It was like, here, buy these brand of smokes over these ones. It'll be fine. No, you're going to die. Now, we have to make so many decisions with brands, and like, it's just hard. And so we just tune out. That is the way that we cope with all of the different messages that are being thrown at us and the decision making processes that we're being forced into. We just tune out. So attention is valuable. We need to then play within the boundaries and use the unique languages and nuances of every platform to maximize the chance of attention, because if we don't, we're just going to be losing out on that attention that's already that hard to gain. Mm-hmm. Does this require more work? Yes, but it requires more work from everyone. And that's where you can stand out, because people will choose not to do the work. People will say, it's too hard. I don't want to do it. Okay, great. Maybe I will. And then I'll win and you won't.
Yep. And just a side note, Coleman is using Canva. And in Canva, they actually have some of the social image graphic sizes already set for you. So you don't even have to go and find them. They're already built in. So
right. I think they have like an auto size feature, which doesn't always work perfectly, but it can get you maybe 50% of the way there, and then you can adjust as needed.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Last question comes from Ben King, and he says, when your church is able to grow their comm department, what are some key positions to fill?
Key positions to fill in the communications department. Are we to assume that Ben has nobody on staff? Because when he says grow communications department, it makes it sound like maybe he's already in charge and he's bringing on a second.
It kind of does sound like that, but I assume if we assume that he has nobody, then we're starting from the ground instead of starting from something.
So like Ben's the lead pastor.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's assume Ben's the lead pastor. I think a communications director is one of the most important people that you can hire in 2017 and beyond, because I think that the way churches are going to grow and expand and share the message of Jesus for the next 5, 10, and 20 years is going to be radically different than the way that we did in the last 10 years. And that isn't something that can be said over the last century. You know, the things that worked in the 70s are pretty much the things that worked in the 80s. Why? Because communication remained the same. Sure, nuances of differences, but then the internet came and everything got real messed up. Like the last time we saw a communication shift that was this big with the printing press, what happened? Well, what was around that time? The Reformation. We just celebrated, 500 years on Halloween? I hope I got that right. If I didn't get that right, I apologize for not knowing that. Point being, when communication shifts of this magnitude take place, a lot of the times, reformation within the church takes place. And we're seeing this so much right now with theology and progressive Christians. And it's, reflected in the political divide within America and, in the UK and in Canada for that sake. And so this is something that is super important because communication, we're living through that biggest communication shift in the last half millennia. And so we need to be able to navigate that. Think about this. So many of the churches that we look up to, Church on the Move, Elevation Church, Life Church, New Spring, ones that I would say are leading in the world of communication and creativity. Those churches, when they grew their influence and became the size that they were, all before 2007. Elevation launched in 2007. The things that did not exist in 2007. First off, iPhones, Facebook, Uber, Spotify, Netflix, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Okay, that's my life. So the things that didn't exist when the churches we look up to grew and rose into prominence, like they were living in a different world. And so the churches that succeed over the next decade, we're going to have to do things radically different because the world we're living in is radically different. The problem is, it doesn't seem like that long ago. 2007. I was 16. That's 10 years ago.
But I can't even remember living in a world without those things.
And this is why churches aren't reacting in the ways that they should, because things are moving so quick. Just things don't change that fast on a macro level. And so when you're aware of that and you're mindful of that, you're able to then step into it and begin to work within it. First step to solving any problem is being aware of the problem. I remember this happened to me. My wife and I were talking about this. We moved out of high school and we go to college and we moved to this new town. And you always hear the stories of the freshman 15. I gained 30 pounds in the first year and didn't even notice. I was I'm totally eating healthy. I look back at that and be like, how did you become that chubby that fast? You weren't even thinking about it. It's you aren't aware of the problem, and thus you cannot affect and change the problem. Step one is becoming aware. That doesn't mean that you're going to solve the problem automatically, but you cannot solve it without that awareness first. Yeah. So I would definitely hire a communications person first, and this person could cover web, social, video, graphic design. What you want to look for when you're hiring someone is a practitioner, someone who does the work, not someone who reads headlines and, is Snapchat with the Gen Z kids. Yeah. No. What have you actually done in these areas? Also, they're probably not going to be able to do everything. And this is where the second person comes in. And so let's assume Ben is the comm director at his church. Who's that second person you hire? I would hire to offload things that you don't want to do. And perhaps most importantly, hire for the things that you are not skilled to do. Right. So if Ben, for instance, is great at video and web, but when it comes to graphics and social, he just doesn't know what he's doing, hire for the things that you are lacking in. And that way you can more fill out the profile, because we need, as churches, to be able to do video. And if you can't hire someone, that's where a story tape comes in. We need someone to do web. If you can't do that, that's where Nucleus comes in. If you need someone to do we need to do social. So if you can't do that, hire for that. If you can't do photography, hire for that. So basically hire for one person for everything. And then as you continue to hire, niche down more and more and more in areas of need. This is how churches are doing it already. The youth pastor is in charge of communications. Well, when that no longer works and you have the budget and you've recognized the priority and need, hire for comm. And then when you're ready to expand that, hire for social. And then hire, we saw this with Elevation Church. A team from my church went down to do their Inside Elevation, I think it's called, for a week. And they were we have this new thing. It's our social video team. So they had hired this new team to do video only for social. Right. And if you look at their Facebook page, they are dominating social video. And the same with Pastor Steven's account on Instagram and Twitter and beyond. So you can just hire and then you just kind of splinter off. More specific, more niche. And so you got to look at where you need first. If I was to choose the most important, I would choose social. I think that's the most important. So if you're already doing, let's say, video and like design and photos and media, and you're like, I don't know too much about social, hire for that. Definitely the most important, I would say, because it's like where your first impression is going to be made beyond your website. Obviously, that's first of importance, but almost every church has a website now. So that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Any added thoughts?
No, I was wondering how you were going to answer that, but that was a good way to answer it of like, if you already have that main person to like fill in where you're not skilled. Because it's hard to say like if that main person is good at one thing or another thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know Ben's particular strengths. Well, that'll do it for this 42nd episode of the Ask Brady Show. If you want your question answered, you can always send it in with the hashtag AskBrady on social media like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Or if you want to send in a video, or if you just don't like posting publicly on social, you can send an email to us. hello@prochurchtools.com is the email address to use, and you can send in a video. If you do that, you'll be sent immediately to the top of the queue, just like Leah was, and your question will be asked next on the next episode of the Ask Brady Show. We'll talk to you then.